Today's episode is a little different as the show topic is part of my new mini-series titled At Home. The intention behind the series is to take a peek inside the homes of everyday people like you and me, to tell the stories of how we live at home, what we love about our homes, and how our homes can be a place of support, refuge, and retreat. While this series is sort of in a beta phase, I do hope that it provides you with a bit of insight to the way you are living at home. Maybe something you hear from one of our guests will inspire you to take action, make a change, or just find more simplicity or appreciation within your own home. My first guest for this series, Mitzi Campbell, shares a similar vision through her podcast, the Blessings Podcast. She believes that your life story, whether it provided you a blessing or a lesson, is your greatest asset and contains valuable information. Through her podcast, Missy shares the stories of regular, everyday people, the people you exchange smiles with, hold the door open for, and pass by in the grocery aisle. Mitzi has spent over 35 years in education. Her dynamic skills in the area of academia, psychology, nonprofit leadership, and the creative arts inform her life story in continuous and powerful ways, allowing her to impact and uplift others. Mitzi uses her platform to connect humanity and inspire personal growth and self-discovery for the good of all. Please enjoy my conversation with my friend, Mitzi Campbell. Thank you again for offering to talk about this. We're talking about your home, which that's very personal. So I really appreciate you kind of offering it up.
Yes.
And I don't really know where I'm going with this yet. I'm kind of thinking about this at home series to kind of step out of just talking about feng shui and conscious design all the time. And I love what you're doing, how you're bringing everyday people and their stories out into the world, because there's so much wisdom that everyday people can share. And I think one of the big conversations I'm having with other people in my industry, especially around like the things we're attached to and like clutter and things like that, there's so much like shame around what we have in our space. And so it's kind of like my mission now to get that up and out of our bodies and out of our minds, because we really should be loving where we live,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yes, there's a lot of things I've done over the years to enhance my physical space. For example, many years ago, I made the decision to only have original art or photography in my home. So instead of going to, Home Goods and getting a sign or a piece of artwork, I would find a local artist or find something that was affordable that was actually created with someone's hands. And I feel like that brings a certain energy to the house, especially if you talk to the artist and get to hear what was in their mind when they created that piece. So every object that I have is very intentional. And even if someone gives you a gift, I can remember receiving gifts that I didn't really love. And although I appreciated the gift deeply, you felt an obligation to put something out on display that wasn't really a match for you vibrationally in your home. And so I don't really do that any longer. So I think it's interesting when you think about the objects you put in your space.
Yeah, I think so many people can relate to that, receiving gifts. I personally don't find anything wrong with regifting, because I feel like and either regifting it or donating it, because someone is going to love it. I mean, the person who bought it for you obviously appreciated it, so it can definitely find another home. So yeah, I think we can all release the shame and guilt of regifting and donating things that don't resonate with us.
That's right. Because it's going to be in alignment with someone.
Right.
And maybe you're just the pass through. Maybe you're just the link that's going to bring it to the person who will really love it, if you think of it that way.
Yeah, great perspective. I love that. We talked briefly, and you mentioned that, speaking of energies, you have had Vastu done to your house, correct?
Yes.
I love that. So I don't know a ton. I remember when I was exploring different energy works and briefly explored it, Feng Shui just resonated more with me. But basically, as I understand it, is the main difference is Vastu is like a science, like an astrology-based science.
Mhm.
and where Feng Shui is more based on philosophy and theory and really passed on wisdom.
Mhm.
Um, do I have that right?
So I'm not an expert in
Mhm.
Vastu, but the woman that I worked with, my friend Maria, has vast knowledge. She calls herself Lady Vastu, and she's just a beautiful person and has studied the science for many years and become certified in all different kinds of energies related to Vastu as well. So it's not just about directing the energy to be in alignment with certain elements and planets and things like that, but it's also about the intention and the mental energy and the mindset piece that goes into it. It's pretty interesting, and it's pretty all encompassing. I mean, I really relied on her wisdom when I was setting up the home to make sure that all the energies were aligned in a way that would allow me to have the best flow, things like wellness and abundance and good health and really anything and everything that you would want to live a good life. You can
Yeah.
achieve aligning the energies in your home in that way
Mhm.
is the whole theory.
Did you build your home or did you have her come and do it within your existing space?
Did it remotely. So I bought my home. And interestingly, I have a duplex. So I have a tenant who lives in the home with me. So that makes it kind of interesting for directing the energies because I didn't do anything in his unit, only in mine. And so there are ways of working in spaces where you can just work in the portion of the space that you need to use or live in. And so I think that's really interesting. But I worked with her and gave her the plan of the house. And then she was able to set things up according to the Vastu principles of direction. And she could see where energy needed to be redirected or blocked in the home. And so if you came into my home, you'd see these they're just little stickers, and they are called yantras that help to redirect the flow of energy in certain places in the home. And so it's very interesting.
In Feng Shui, we have something similar, the Feng Shui crystal ball. So,
Okay.
you see the
I
little
that
faceted crystal bars just to
yeah.
kind of help disperse the chi around evenly. Great
Yeah.
example of how we use it is a lot of homes are structured to where when you open the front door, there's a stairway going
Mm,
right upstairs. And it's like the chi just comes in and poof, goes right up the steps, right? So you want it to kind of permeate and meander around the space. So like a adjustment for that would be to hang a crystal ball at the either at the very top of the stairs, or you could even do it at the bottom of the stairs just to kind of help spread that chi out and let it kind of slow down a little bit.
and I chose Vastu only because I had a friend who was doing it, and it could have been anything because I'm just really into different spiritual arts. I feel like there's a lot of lost wisdom. There's a lot of history that we don't know about or understand. And other cultures and these practices have been really important in the lives of, millions of people. And I think we can learn a lot from embracing those things that might be different from what we're used to. And your home is your sanctuary. I mean, whatever you can do to solidify that feeling of, comfort and wellness and just security in when you're in your home. And, if you believe that aligning certain energetic pathways in your home is going to help you with that, then it is going to help you with that.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
it is a lot about your mindset. But I mean, I love my home. I feel extremely comfortable in my home. I feel safe. I sleep like a baby.
Mm.
And, it all kind of comes together to enhance your life.
Yeah. And there's so many different aspects of your life that's playing out in your home. Like I'm sure in Vastu, as there is in Feng Shui, different sections of the home represent different areas of your life.
Mhm.
And for a lot of people, really, I think what they just need is some awareness. And so when you work with a practitioner, regardless of the energy work that it is, they're like your guide,
Mhm.
right? And then once you uncover those things for yourself, you have some tools then to apply to your space. So I'm curious, you mentioned just being really intentional with your art. And I love that, by the way. What other ways have you set yourself up in your home?
I also really embrace things that I love. So I love vintage books. So I might have certain books on my shelf that sort of tie into different things that I love right now or things that I'm into right now. I don't know, books are really important to me. So I think color, and when I moved into this space maybe 2 years ago, I wanted the walls to be white. And then I would use the different elements, the art, the little things like pillows and things like that to add the color. And so I was able to express myself in a more nuanced way by having such a clean backdrop, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. I'm sitting here nodding my head because you sound like me. Number one with the books, because I'm also a book lover. I was actually thinking I need to like go through some books
Well,
and
yes,
maybe
and I do
donate
go
some.
through. I think that's important to go through because that's what I do. That I have a very small space now. I moved from a bigger space into a smaller space, so I had to really like think about what objects I wanted to bring into the space.
Sure.
And so I brought in only things that I love. And then I thought, well, why do we have things in our home that we don't love? I mean, we do. We have a lot of things, and to begin to feel okay about cleaning those out and only having things that you love. It's almost like your clothing, like, you keep an article of clothing around, even though you don't like it anymore, because you think to yourself, oh, well, I'll wear it. It's useful. There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't love it. And it's kind of interesting to think about how could you live your life only having things in your space and wearing things that you love? I mean, why not?
Right.
It really enhances your life to be able to do that. And then to let go of any guilt of saying, oh, well, my grandmother gave this to me. I should keep this on the shelf. I don't know. You can if you love it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting with clothes too. If it's a piece you're not really loving, but you're holding on to it, you'll still put it on every once in a while.
Yeah.
And you can tell in
And
the
you
way
feel
you
like
carry
you feel
yourself that
terrible.
day. Yeah. You're like, this looks awful. I just want to go home and change. And then we keep
I
it
know.
still. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
But I've gotten into the habit now. And once you do it more and more, it becomes easier. You don't feel guilty about it and you just give it away.
Yeah.
I believe in giving things away. I mean, certain things, if it's something valuable, I might try to sell something, but
Sure.
generally I give things away. That was something I heard about, I think from Bob Proctor, who is
Yes. Yes. He would say, give it away.
just give it away.
Yes. I was going to say it's Bob Proctor. That's
Yes.
We're so aligned. I love this. And
I
you're also
know. I
talking
love
about
that.
like the white paint. And sometimes I think clients get frustrated with me because they'll be like, I want color. And I'm like, well, we can do color in other ways. But if
Yeah.
you're going to paint your whole house now and hire a painter, let's keep it really neutral. And then you can keep it for a long time and you can change things out. So that's my philosophy too. I'm definitely a neutral backdrop girl.
Yeah.
So
Classic. And now, in the space where I'm sitting right now, this is my office loft area, and it was an attic. So I had just put boards. I just finished it with raw boards, and then I whitewashed them, but they still have a bit of color. My main area of the house is white. It's like the walls are just sheetrocked and white. But I feel so good in that clear space. Like everyone who comes into my place is always like, oh, it feels so great in here. It just feels good. It really has a good feeling.
yeah.
And that has a lot to do with the things you do energetically.
Right. So I did an episode on creating more sacred space in your environment. For a lot of people, that looks like an altar space or a meditation space, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It might be just sitting on the edge of the bed. It might be your favorite chair. Do you have anything like that in your space where you just love being in?
This couch that I'm sitting on right now, I usually use this for meditation because it has a straight back and it's very comfortable. And I do sometimes use different altars where I'll just have a candle and I'll burn an incense or a candle or something if I have an intention I want to set. And sometimes we'll use crystals. I just feel like it's a little something that enhances my life. I enjoy them. I enjoy crystals. They do have energy. They power things.
Right.
They literally power things.
Literally, I know. Like think about a watch, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when you think of it that way, here's the thing too I want to say is that you don't have to fully understand something. You don't have to be an expert in Feng Shui or Vastu or using crystals or, praying using an altar or meditating. Like, you can bring these elements into your life at the level of appreciation that you have. You don't have to feel like you have to now research everything to the nines and know everything there is to know.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel good, that is what you need to know. And then as you begin to work with it, you learn more. Then if you want to go and do a deep dive, then go ahead and do it. But you shouldn't feel like you have to be an expert or know everything there is to know just to dive into something that you think is going to make you feel good.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's what prevents people from even taking the first step to bettering their space. You don't have to know everything there is about energy and the elements and astrology and all of the things, right? Because there's still things I'm learning. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because it was like, if I don't use it, I'm going to lose it. Like, I want to work with it every day. I want to talk about it every day so that I can help people who want to take that first step. I mean, it really starts with just being more mindful about what you bring into your home, being a more conscious consumer, um, being in love with the things that you own. I think Marie Kondo really beat that into our brains, like, you don't love it, see you later. So that's where it
It's
starts.
so true. I think that just embracing that one concept has really been a boost for me and in my space. And also, when you do get to the point in life where if you decide to downsize, this kind of forces that hand, it forces you to really take a look at everything and say, all right, do I love it? I love what you say about clutter, because I think if you get to the point where you can't, like physically can't sort through things and make decisions about what's going to stay and what's going to go, that's when it's a problem. Like, I have tons of clutter in this room, and things that maybe aren't in the right place right now, or I'm using them so they're out. But I do know someone, interestingly, who has a hoarding disorder and does not acknowledge it. And it's a very difficult problem in a family when you have that, because it does, I believe, reflect what's in the mind of the person
For
when
sure.
there's too much chaos in the external environment.
For sure. If it's not like an actual disorder, a little more acute than that, there's usually some underlying emotions attached to that. And a lot of times when you can work with a client and get them to uncover what that emotion is, right? It's the same idea about awareness. Like, once you're aware of something, then you can make your changes, right? And if a client can uncover that emotion, release that emotion, releasing the object or the things really comes very quite easily after that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think about this a lot because in my own work, when you have difficulty letting something go, because I work with stories and the lessons that you learn from your stories. And I think about objects that I have that represent things in my story that I need to release. But for some reason, I hold on to the object. So, for example, like a shirt you were wearing when you had an argument with someone. And then every time you see the shirt, all you can think about is that time that you had that argument. Or the shoes you were wearing when you had that breakup years ago, but you keep the shoes. And every time you put them on, you think about that breakup. It's just crazy that you'd hold on to them. But they're nice shoes. Maybe they were expensive shoes. And you think, okay, I can't get rid of these shoes. But I have other objects like that. Like, I can think of a seashell that someone gave me one time. And it was a very bad experience. And I still have the seashell. And I don't know, maybe we need some reminders of some things just to keep us on track. And maybe there are things we should get rid of. But I guess
Yeah.
it depends on how it makes you feel and whether or not you want to sit with that feeling.
Yeah,
And
that's an
what it
interesting
means.
perspective.
Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting.
Maybe you could just clear the object.
That's a great idea. I think I will do that because the object, the seashell itself, it represents the one good part of this person that I knew was really true. And I also think part of keeping the seashell for me is like, that was a lesson. That was one of the biggest lessons of your life that you learned. And you need to always remember that, so
Yeah, I think that's a
but I love
beautiful
the
way.
idea of clearing it. And I'm probably
Yeah.
going to get off my stage this afternoon.
For sure. Yeah, because objects hold energy. I mean, some people can't go into an antique shop because they feel the energy of, in Feng Shui, we call it predecessor chi. So their energy is in objects. So clear it, just clear
So
it
how
and
do
set
you
in a
clear
new.
it? What do you do to clear it?
So you could do exactly what you said. You could use sage, any sort of smoke, incense, Palo Santo,
Yeah, I have
sage,
Palo Santo too.
anything will clear it. And really, it's the intention behind the clearing, being
Mhm.
really specific about what energy you're clearing from the object, and then invoking it with a new intention of what that object represents to you, what you want to feel when you look at that object, so just being really clear about
Yes.
what
Yes.
the object represents for you.
Yeah, I love that. It's
Yeah.
interesting to bring that up because I just recently got at an auction a new painting, and it's an oil portrait from the 1800s. Wow. And it's a beautiful little girl. She's just beautiful. This little picture of this girl. I love it so much. But I thought about that because I feel the energy. I even feel like I knew her name. I think she's Samantha, but who knows? But I feel that. I mean, I think even if you're not aware of the energy of an object like that, like an antique, it's still there. And if you could just tune into it, you'll get a sense. So the idea of speaking to the object, I hope that doesn't sound crazy, but speaking
No,
to the
no, not to
object,
me.
I know, I'm talking to. But in a positive way and saying, a portrait in particular, I think an antique portrait, like this is a person who lived. This is a portrait of a real
Sure.
person. And she had a whole life. I don't know what happened in her life and who she was, but I really love her. And I get a very positive vibe from her. So talking about that and just, using something like the Palo Santo or the sage to just to align with the energy or to make it right or to make it fit is I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that for my picture and my shell as soon as we get off.
Yay.
The other
Man,
thing I was thinking, and I wonder what you think about this, I saw this trend, where you would post a picture of social media of your bedside table. What's on your bedside table? It says, like, everything about you.
very true.
I love that idea of, like, what are the objects you keep close to you when you go to bed, when you're
Mhm.
sleeping? And usually for me, there's a pile of books that I haven't read. There's, cat
Me
there's
too.
yep. There's a humidifier to keep me hydrated at night right now, just for the winter. A light. What else is there? A picture with my mom who's passed. And usually there's a notebook and a pen, a pencil. I like pencils. So yeah, when you think about what objects are there, I mean, is there anything in your practice that you recommend or don't recommend to keep by you when you're sleeping?
Yeah, interesting enough is books is not necessary, and I'm guilty of this too, but I read, like that's my only time that I really get to dig into some reading, but I do have to be mindful of how many books I'm keeping there
Okay.
because just the wisdom of books, and I'm sure I have a feeling you're probably a strong nonfiction reader. Did I guess that
Yes.
right? Yeah,
I
me too. So
yes. I have to intentionally read fiction, but yes, I've been reading some classics and some of them are fiction, so that's good. But yes, I love fiction. I just always there's so many other nonfiction books I want to read that I
same, I
don't.
know. My book list on Amazon is like
Yeah,
triple page, it's crazy.
absolutely. Yep. Me too. Me too.
So yeah, being mindful of how many books you are actually keeping at your nightstand is rather important just because the energy and the wisdom of books and oh, I haven't gotten to that book. It's like thoughts like that are playing out unconsciously when you're sleeping. So I try to keep like right now I'm studying A Course in Miracles. That's like my primary
Is that
study.
okay?
Yeah.
Finish that.
And then I also have The Science of Mind, the big one from Ernest Holmes. That's sitting
Oh,
there
okay.
too. So I'll kind of like do both. But I also have a lamp. I have a journal and a pen just in case there's any dream work I want to,
Yep.
which I never actually do. Like I keep it there, but I actually never take notes
I
when
get
I
so
wake up.
tired. It's funny. I just recently started keeping a dream journal, and so if it's something I remember when I wake up, I will usually dictate it into a phone note, and then later I'll handwrite it into my dream journal later
Good
because
for
I don't have
you.
the
That's
energy to write
dedication.
it. Like if it wakes me up, I definitely don't have the energy to write it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm aware of my dreams right in the moment I wake up.
Yeah.
And I wish I had the energy to write them out, but I don't wake up from my dream at like 2 in the morning and I'm like writing. I mean, I just never could do that. And then I have just a tray of like my everyday jewelry sitting there. And then usually there's a pile of like love notes from my daughter and dollar bills. She loves to like put dollar bills on everybody's nightstand. And she makes those little like loom bracelets. So it's usually a pile of all of my daughter's
Yeah.
stuff too.
Oh, I love that. Like little small things that you love. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. That's so
That's
nice.
an interesting thing, though, taking a picture of your nightstand. And I just talked about that in yesterday's episode about just cultivating self-love and clearing your nightstand and being mindful about what is on your nightstand. And yeah, it should be things that you love. I mean, your bedroom is your most intimate space, not just with a partner, but with yourself too. And that's where you're most vulnerable at night. I mean, you're sleeping, you're practically unconscious. So really being mindful of what's sitting next to you and the energy that those things hold is important. So yeah, nightstands are an important role in energetic patterns.
Yeah, they are. It's such an interesting thing to think about your bedroom. One thing I did in my bedroom several years ago was I removed the television. So I had the television for years, and then probably, oh gosh, it's been at least 10 years now that I have not had a television in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's just for sleeping, and that it should be
That's great.
just for sleeping, or for like I'll actually go in there and just lay down and just lay quietly at night just to reset my nervous system and be alone. I'll put on YouTube like a 528 hertz video or something
Yeah.
like where it's just the sound, and then I'll just lay for a bit before I go to sleep, and it helps so much.
Yeah. When we first got married, my husband, well, the first house we bought, we renovated the bedroom first. And I said to him, I said, do not want a TV in the bedroom. And he was a little disgruntled about that because he likes to go in bed and get comfy and like watch something. And then we kind of got away from it. And then once I started my Feng Shui training, and that's a big no-no, right? No TVs
Yeah.
in the bedroom for many reasons too. I mean, just sleeping with, any electronic devices and the EMF concern and all of that. Um, we did have one in there, and it was primarily because there just happened to be a cable cord in the bedroom and we had an extra TV. I mean, we don't have cable now, but so once I did my Feng Shui training, I said, we're getting rid of the TV. And he was not happy about it, but it was at a level where he would come up and he'd turn it on and he was asleep in 2 minutes. And
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no point in this. Like, this TV is doing more harm than good, so it's leaving. And it is. It's so peaceful and it's so subtle. But when you
Yep.
don't have it in there, it's very noticeable.
It's very noticeable. It changes everything. And I know when my kids are grown now, but when they were little, I did put TVs in their rooms, and that was a big thing. It was what should you, shouldn't you? And at the end of the day, we decided to do it. And it just because it kept them in bed, it kept them, in a place where they could at least settle. And I would not do that again. If I were reparenting again, I would definitely not have TVs in my children's rooms. But
Yeah. Wow. Don't beat yourself up. The
I
things
know,
we
I
wish
know.
we would have done differently as parents, right?
I know,
That could be a
exactly.
whole nother episode.
Oh, yes. For sure. For sure.
I mean, 2 years ago, there's things I would have done differently that I know now. I think that's just life, we
Yeah.
live
Yes.
and learn, right?
But when you have kids, you do have a lot of objects around, and that is something that always bothered me. I loved that they had a lot of toys and things, but I can remember really feeling like celebratory when there was a toy that would break, and I'd be like, I threw it away. And I was very tricky. I would go through their toys and I would put things that I knew they weren't playing with anymore into a contractor bag because it was very dark black bag. You could not see into it. And I would just get rid of things that way. And they never noticed. And I had to do it in kind of a sneaky way, which is maybe that's another bad mommy thing. But things that were broken or discarded or missing pieces and those kind of things I would get rid of.
The stuffed animals is what really kills me. That's like,
Oh yes, I remember that, all of that. Oh my gosh, you're bringing back memories because I remember all of that. Sometimes our kids are a nice little mirror.
right? Very true. Got to remind myself of that one. What's reflecting back to me right now?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think
Wonderful.
balance, a little bit of balance, maybe. I don't know. But it is nice when you get to the stage in life where you can fully embrace all the things that you love and want to have in your environment. Even though you love your children, they're their own little humans. They have their own preferences and their own passions and their own way of wanting to do things. It is an interesting stage.
Yeah, it's a challenge and a balance, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
Right.
Yes.
Well, Mitzi, I want to give you an opportunity to speak a little bit about your podcast. It's interesting following you now on Instagram. It's like I feel like I know you. So I'm so
I
grateful we got
know
to meet in person.
that
Yeah.
I have to say through this whole process of starting a podcast, working with people that I'm meeting online, I am in love with this whole process because I have met so many wonderful people. It's just crazy. I used to be the type of person, I actually went off of Facebook few years ago because it was too negative for me. I did not like the energy there. Went off.
Yeah.
And then when I took this course to learn how to start a podcast, I had to go back on because I had to be in the group. So I went on and restructured my entire participation in Facebook. I did not befriend anybody I know in my actual life and just started from scratch with the intention of this is going to be my professional life. This is going to be my new energy. And you cannot believe the wonderful things that have come into my life because of that, because of restructuring. So when you talk about Feng Shui and Vastu and redoing, you have to think about other aspects of your life as well. The social media being huge influence. Like we don't even realize. I don't watch the news. I will read certain things intentionally just to be informed. And beyond that, I don't participate in anything that brings me down, really. I mean, I'm not trying to ignore that there are bad things in life, but I'm able to handle the negatives that come along with just living an ordinary life. And so, the point in starting the podcast kind of goes along with that philosophy of like, we need to begin to really see each other for who we actually are. And I think change the world really, because we've got so many things influencing us from the outside, trying to tell us what's real. And we need to tune into what is actually real. And that's what we get by just having human to human interactions, one person at a time, you know?
Mhm.
And so I thought about how you go to the grocery store and, well, at least I do, you start talking to the person in line with you, or you start up a conversation with somebody walking down the street, you say hello, you smile at people. You see the guy, mowing his lawn and you think, well, geez, I wonder he keeps his lawn so great. I wonder what his story is, just being curious about one another. And so I thought telling the stories from the perspective of just regular people, regular folks that, hearing their stories and then allowing that to shine a light on the lessons of life that we learn from one another or with ourselves and the blessings, the things that we need to be grateful for. So I came up with the Blessings podcast, Blessings and Lessons of Life. And I've been showcasing the lives of people that I've met along the way or that have contacted me that want to be a guest on the podcast. And people have unbelievable stories. And it doesn't even have to be something amazing to be a great story. It can just be a regular life that you learn things that are important to know from. Somebody might have a great tragedy and that they've learned a really deep lesson from that. But then somebody else might have devoted their life to being like my friend Cheryl. She does have a tragedy in her life. Her focus is being a mother, being a grandmother, the importance of family. Like that's kind of a normal thing, but yet so profound.
Right.
So anyway, that's what I'm doing, and I'm hoping to just make a massive positive impact on the world one way or another, one
Yeah.
person at a
No,
time.
I
So,
love that. Thank you. And thank you for what you're putting out there. And that's kind of what I'm wanted to do too with this at home series. I just want to, you know, get a little peek into everyday people's lives. How are they living? How are they setting themselves up?
yeah,
And if one person gains something from that,
yeah,
then we've done our job, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it
'Cause there are people I can think of students I've had over the years who I know lived in terrible environments, may not have had a home, may not have felt safe in their home, may not have known where they were going to sleep, if they were going to sleep in a bed with a blanket. There are people who live this way. And so having the luxury of curating your environment is something to be held dear. It's
Yeah.
a treasure.
It is a treasure. It's a luxury. It's a treasure. Great words of wisdom. Well, thank you, Mitzi.
You're
How
welcome.
can we find anything more about you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram at Mitzi Ann Campbell and at blessings.podcast, and you could look at my website, blessingspodcast.com. Anybody who has a story to tell or wants to share your story, I'd love to hear from you. And I just hope everybody lives with love and joy and has a great life. That's
Yeah,
what I want for
wonderful.
them.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitzi.
All
This
right.
was great.
Thanks, Sarah. Oh my
All right.
gosh, so good to speak with you.
I hope you enjoyed the first of my at-home series. Mitzi is such a delight. We share more commonalities than I could have imagined. What a treat getting to know her. You can listen to the Blessings podcast on most streaming platforms. You can also connect with Mitzi on Instagram and on YouTube. Links to those handles are in the episode show notes. Additionally, be sure you are subscribed to this podcast to be notified of all upcoming episodes. Simply just hit the follow button wherever you are streaming from. And if you feel called, please rate or review the show as well. If you have a story to tell about your home, I'd love to connect with you. There are so many topics we can discuss. Really, nothing is off the table. Anything from living more sustainably, moving, living with an aging or ailing parent, maybe downsizing, living through home renovations, or just living with less. All of these stories are worth sharing, and so please reach out. There is a guest submission form on my website. I'll be sure to put the link to that in the show notes as well. I hope you're looking forward to our next at-home guest spotlight. Until next time, much love and gratitude.